my fulfillment does not come from what I do. It comes from who I am.
Meet Christiaan Van Den Berg, the co-founder of JobJack, the platform that helps South Africans find entry-level jobs.
You don't build a business, you build the people, and the people build the business. There's so much conviction in what we're doing that it's almost not an option for us to fail.
How are you guys finding it?
With the first MVP that ran through me, we actually made quite a bit of revenue to prove traction, to get a first angel that got us through the next 3 months. Oh, we got a bit more traction. So, okay, we could raise a tiny bit more to get us through the next 2 or 3 months. We didn't dive in, we have traction, let's go raise R1 million. And so eventually we built up so that we didn't have to give a lot away at all. And ultimately you're building a lot of support in that as well. And you building in a way where you're forced to really prove traction with each raise.
And growing and scaling the team, what challenges are there?
Oh, that's a great question.
Christiaan, I usually begin this podcast by trying to understand the formative years of my guests. So if I had to ask you to describe your childhood in one word, what would that word be?
To choose one word is difficult. I'm going to try and barrel it. I'm going to cheat here. Think for self.
I guess the word would be enabling.
That's a good one. Yeah, I definitely say so, right? To give you some context, my dad is an entrepreneur. And my mother's a psychologist, right? So that that combo has pros and cons. And you spoke about enabling, right? Enabling can have very healthy definition, and enabling can have a very unhealthy definition, right? And how I've interpreted your question is more a healthy one, like motivating, setting you up for success. And I think, yes, definitely. I think my father is someone that showed me that you go get what you set out to get, not what your circumstances dictate. You decide, right? Because if you go study X, but you turn out that, oh, this is actually something I'd rather want to take on, then you go do it. I mean, my father, really showcased that, what you're going to achieve is more up to you than the circumstances that dictate your outcome. And so I think, that is really something that helped cultivate a think for self. What is it that you want to go get? Well, go get it. Life has inevitably, does have setbacks, but the world's your oyster.
What is the reason for your parents homeschooling you?
You went into the... Okay, cool. Okay, so precisely to that, right? So at a point, my father was appointing quite a few, top grads from universities to run some of his businesses, and he saw, shucks, but these amazing, smart people really struggle to think for themselves. They are sitting there waiting for an instruction, and if something pops up, which in a business it inevitably does, then they're frozen. They, one, not willing to push the boundaries and work hard where it's needed, get their hands dirty, and two, they're just sitting there. And it's not due to a bad attitude, it's just the way that they've been taught or educated. And so they really just dove into what's it going to take for our kids to think for themselves, to not come out as robots or, learning in a parroted way. And so we homeschooled for 3 years, grade 5, 6, and 7, so pretty formative years of your age. But my parents did a lot of effort that we were integrated into society. I did gymnastics then, which was amazing. And, we got stuck into our church a lot. But I think what they realized going through that was, yes, it helps. Some of the curriculum we did really does shape the way that you think about history or think about science or so forth. But ultimately, a lot of it comes down into the way that you've been raised, parented, not just necessarily the curriculum. And so that's why we then integrated back into high school. And glad we did. But also glad we went through that phase, because I think we did learn a lot. We moved around a lot between my dad's various businesses, so that we could get involved, we could think for ourselves, we could write our grade 7 NDA exams while living on the 9th floor of a hotel that he was opening in Cape Town with a lift that's broken. And so during my Maths 1 and Maths 2 exam, I'd needed to go down, fetch a light bulb, take it to a guest because it wasn't working, and then quickly go up and write my next exam. So that was, that's kind of the the reality that you're thrown in, and I think that sets you up for like you can do things and things need to be done and life carries on.
Do you think that your dad was a risk taker?
He still is a risk taker. He's a massive risk taker, and I think that was a good example for me. I think like I've learned subsequently like what my own risk appetite is and what is healthy for me and my family, as opposed to certain elements of how he was, how he raised us. But I think he showed an amazing stability, and we can refer to it as faith as well in times where there was no food on the table, because there were times where there was no food on the table because he I don't want to say took a reckless risk, but there was a risk involved in the decision he made, and it didn't pay off. But it was, again, to the first point I made, okay, well, now we move on and we go solve the problem, because no one's going to solve it for us, and setbacks are going to be there. Are you guys all with me? Are we fine? Are we okay? Cool, let's go.
Do you think that from that experience, does any limiting beliefs come up? And I'll give you the context. So my dad was very much he worked for a company for over 20 years, and then was unfortunately let go. And then he basically pursued his own business and became an entrepreneur when I was 15. But that experience taught me a lot about finance. And I definitely had, and probably still have, limiting beliefs around finance, as in how much I can make, how much I can grow the finance. So there's a lot of things that I'm still working through. Did you notice things like that for yourself?
Sure, that's a good one. I think like a limiting belief for me was maybe the opposite, that you can be happy in a normal, I want to say normal corporate job, which I've learned is completely a lie, right? Like it's where you call to be and what you enjoy is amazing, regardless of the finance, regardless of how I interpret what freedom is or what fulfillment is, or what kind of a stimulating vocation is like. And I think even going through my articles taught me that already, right? Because even during articles I wasn't sure what is it that I was going to do. So even through that, grappling with, okay, am I going to be a content and happy person if I continue in profession, right? If I become an accountant full-time or an auditor, what would that look like for me? And subsequently, obviously, didn't decide to go that route, and very glad I didn't. But needed to kind of fight against this thinking of people are dumb if they don't do their own thing, right? Or people are not dumb in the sense of unintelligent, just can't they just break out and do that? And that's not for everyone, and it shouldn't be, right? And I think that was a big limiting factor growing up, is to you see that as the ultimate, but it's definitely not the ultimate. It's a route that someone can take. I think the same way people sometimes see actors or more, public figure roles are that's the ultimate. I can promise you it comes with a lot of demons as well. Maybe more so than other jobs, but you need to do what you've been called to do, and you need to be content in that, because that comparison, very often is the killer of contentment. And so that was, I think, a big breakthrough. And I still struggle, now and then, especially if people complain about a certain stable job. Then I'm like, oh well, just do your own thing. Mm-hmm. Just because they're complaining doesn't mean it's they're unhappy or they shouldn't be doing. I complain about what I do, right? So yeah, I'd say that was a pretty big one that just comes to mind.
Yeah, that's such a good point about essentially finding what you are called to do. Mm. And I feel like I'm speaking for myself here, find that like you, I'm like, why doesn't everyone become an entrepreneur? And then you actually are an entrepreneur and you're like, oh, this is why. It is not for everyone. And this weekend I was having conversations with my friends, and she literally said, for me, all I want to do is go to work, do something meaningful, get paid, come home, and enjoy my life with my dog, with my partner, and I'm happy. That's me. I'm fulfilled. And I was like, good for you, because you found that out for yourself, 100%. And now you can go and live that. 100%. I feel like the comparison, you mentioned such a good thing about comparison, and I also think that it comes from perhaps a cracks in the belief system, and not perhaps getting a strong value-based upbringing, right?
Sure.
Or you do get that, and then you still figure out things for yourself based on experiences that you go through. But it sounds like you were very much in a very strong belief system.
My, context, my upbringing is a very strong Christian one. My parents definitely, I want to say, allowed for us to experience, the world, but very much, obviously led us in the way that they believed was right. And obviously everyone goes through, whether it be high school or varsity, the time where you need to decide for yourself as well. And I'm really appreciative of that freedom in allowing us to. But yes, I do think that and I want to almost more speak to their showcasing of faith, like through very difficult times, is more of what I carry than a lecture or a sermon or anything of the likes that enforces an idea as opposed to showcases one, right? Sets an example as one. And I think part of that is diving not just into the principles of Christianity, but the principles of what is a fulfilled life, right? There's this, I might butcher it now, but there's this almost like circular example of a businessman goes to said island, fisherman sitting there fishing. Businessman goes to him like, wouldn't you want to catch more fish? And okay, sure. Catches more. Okay, well, we can actually. What if we train other people, and we could make this a really good business? Because imagine you can have enough money for your child to go to university and buy them everything that they ever wanted. Okay, yeah, cool. Push, work themselves to the bone. Never really fish again, actually. Only to at the end of their life be like, oh, thank goodness, my child can now go to varsity. They have everything they want. They can probably get a good education. I can finally sit back and just fish a little bit, and hopefully one day my child has enough not to worry about so that they can also sit and fish. At the end of the day, you're sitting and fishing again because that's where your content place is, right? And
you're at the place where you started.
Exactly. So I think, right, a lot of people, think about all these principles, whether it be, like from a religious perspective or a business idea being this, it needs to be a means to an end, as opposed to like, no, it's like what, like in this moment that even you and I are sitting here, like, are we content? Are we fulfilled in like what we do? Are we feeling like we really like doing what we're called to do? Whether it be, in my case, sharing the love that I've received, freely received from above, like, and the joy and the life that's just overflowing and it's amazing and I wish everyone would experience it. Or is it, cool, I'm helping people find jobs, which is incredible opportunity, an incredible privilege for me to be doing, because that's by no means, doing what I'm doing for the money, right? There are probably easier ways of making money. But yes, we've got an amazing sustainable business, that's growing a lot and that's probably going to make a lot of money. But again, it's because there's this saying, if you chase purpose, profit will follow. And so if people can try, and it's difficult. I mean, I struggle with it on a daily to see like, shucks, what is it that I can take away from it, be it your faith or your religion or your, life lessons or your work that help me be content on a momentary or day-to-day basis, as opposed to like, I just need to push through because it's all about the end.
Yeah, you made me think about how do we switch from being that outcome-driven to essentially pursuit-driven and enjoy that day-to-day as opposed to just chasing and expecting one day for you to be fulfilled.
Yeah, that's a tough one, right? And I know I've gone down on a tangent here, but it's something I'm grappling with as well, right? Because big part of doing what I'm doing now from a business perspective is outcomes based as well, right? Like, but also you need to enjoy doing it, whilst you're doing it. And a big part of building a sustainable and scalable business is you need to put processes in place which speak to what you're doing right now. You need to be remembering and motivating yourself as to like, oh, this is really amazing that I can be doing this. Yes, I'm chasing X, but like, there's beauty in just the one person that I'm helping find a job right now, right? Whether it be amidst thousands that you are, like, that's where the beauty and that's where the motivation comes in, and that's where the fulfillment and calling comes in. Or then, obviously, if we're speaking about outside of work, how does it look? How do we get ourselves into that place? This is an amazing book that I read a few years ago called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And it speaks to like our culture, obviously, in society being pushed from a constantly outcomes-based, perspective. And there's a lot of value in outcomes-based. I think, we're also seeing, a new working, generation come up that sometimes sits with a bit of entitlement, or like, it just needs to be fun. Like, I don't need to work for XYZ. No, like there's a lot of sense and a lot of responsibility, and like just a lot of fairness in working hard for something, right? Whether it be looking after your family, whether it be honoring your employer, whether it be committing to something, because that comes with responsibility, but not creating a society that's driven about pure outcome and pure comparison, as opposed to just like, wow, I'm doing what I'm called to do. Yes, it's hard work sometimes, but like it's the act of doing it is beautiful, and not rushing to the next thing.
I know firsthand how overwhelming it can be to start and grow a podcast from scratch. From figuring out your show's concept, deciding between audio or video, learning how to record and edit, to wondering how you'll stand out in a sea of other podcasters out there. That's why I'm super excited to share that I've teamed up with Latitude Podcast Studio and podcast coach and industry pro, Sean Lutz. Whether you're just starting out or looking to take your podcast to the next level, Sean has the tools and experience to help you get there. Head over to seanlutz.com to book your free call today. Back to the episode. And when you were doing your articles and back in PWK,
PKF.
Sorry, PKF. When you were back at PKF, did you have this goal in mind to essentially then build this big business and expect fulfillment to come from that? Or, was it not even a thought at that point? Were you still kind of like figuring things out?
Oh, that's a great question. No, so just my fulfillment does not come from what I do. It comes from who I am, regardless of what I do. And so speaking to what I mentioned earlier, right, grappling with what am I going to do year after, that is less important than who I am, because I need to be, in theory, it's different in reality, right? Like in theory, just as content with who I am and who I've been made to be, whether I'm sitting behind a desk and doing X job, or doing something that attracts more attention or that's more fulfilling. Yes, I believe I've been massively blessed by doing what we're doing. We're helping people that have not gotten an opportunity, to find work, and that's incredibly fulfilling. It is fulfilling, but my fulfillment as a human did not come from what I was doing at that time. It still does not come from what I'm doing, and I'm saying this now, kind of knowing that I'm doing an amazing thing now, right? So like I'm very cognizant of my bias, but to maybe answer your question in a bit more of a practical manner, to that time, not knowing, shucks, what am I going to do after articles? This was first off of second year, because JobJack started in my second year of articles. You grapple with like, what is it that's going to stimulate me? I think that's maybe a better word, especially if we're more speaking to vocation side of things, right? Because stimulation is something that you feel energized by. You feel like, oh, this is amazing, because there's service in everything you do. Right now, what we do, there's a more obvious service, right? We're helping people find jobs. But let's say, hypothetically, I stayed in auditing. Like, there's a lot of service in helping people make sure that, their books aren't fraudulent or that everything's accurate. Like, and obviously, it's up to you to go see and go find what that service is, and to believe that which you're doing is really serving others, because I think there's a lot of fulfillment also in serving people. But that's a lot a mindset thing as well. Mm-hmm. And I think I had a lot of grace with myself with regards to like what it might look like. So I think if you can allow yourself the freedom to say, okay, well, if I'm staying on, I'm okay with that. If I do this type of venture that's going to make a lot of money but maybe have less impact, like, is that okay? If I work on this, and to allow yourself to go through that, whether it be actually thinking about it, whether it be actually doing and pursuing some of it, which I did. A lot I did, right? And because that then leads you to a place of diving into your strengths. Like each person has strengths and weaknesses. Each person is stimulated, energized by different things. I think if you can get a combination where you're feeling you're in a place where you're really thriving and energized, and you really feel like what you're doing is meaningful to people, because everything is. You just need to find the beauty in that. Then I think you can allow yourself okay, cool, now you can go. But to get there, you need to not put that pressure on you. And I think that's where this hustle culture, like, what can I do to be more cool, or to, add more value, or to be more like impactful, or whatever the case may be. I think all of that, it's unfortunately like mutually inclusive. So I'm trying not to speak about one element or the other, but it flows so intrinsically in what I see people grappling with. And I know the bias that I'm speaking out now, but I wish people would give themselves the grace to just know that it's okay. You don't have to have it all figured out. I still don't have it all figured out. I'm learning as we go through different business seasons and cycles as well.
100%. I think that too many people think that it's black and white.
Yeah.
It's either this or that. Whereas like what she's speaking about is the one thing I took from that is the seasons. Then in that specific season, if you're okay with perhaps being an accountant and then just fully committing to that and fully going for it and being okay for this to be that part of your life. And maybe just planning for the next 2 to 3 years and not having it all figured out.
Yeah.
I was extremely hard on myself because I'm like, oh, Philip, I'm behind. But behind in comparison to who? Firstly, I'm comparing myself. And then secondly, to what? Like, am I close to retirement age? Am I running out of time? Like, what is that fear that's pushing me to have everything figured out right now? I think like for me, unpacking that is very similar to what you're talking about, which is being okay with where you are now and fully accepting that part of your journey, and whatever will come, but sort of having this intention for what you want to happen. And I guess it's a lot of trust and faith. It's a lot.
And life is tough, right? Like life, it seems as simple as us saying this now. Life is tough. You put under a lot of external pressure, right? Internal and external pressure, but you can only control what you can control. And so that's where like a lot of that comes to the internal pressure that you're putting on yourselves. Like, it's not necessary. Like, it's really not needed. And I'm hoping and praying, right, that like people get to that realization that like you said, it's okay. Like if it means that this season I'm doing X, just breathe a bit. Like, it's okay. Like, it's really fine, because like if I'm operating from a place of peace, it's going to give you much more clarity of thought, where you can start, okay, this is actually what I enjoy doing. This is what I don't enjoy doing, as opposed to this continual pressure that probably put on yourself, that people like me put on you as well, because you're seeing what's happening and you're like, oh my word, this, like, what they're doing is amazing. Or like, for me, sometimes things are black and white. And so I've got this tendency to like, but it's as easy as just like surrendering here, or like doing this or thinking this way. Like, it's not. I know it's not. And so that's something I'm working on as well, right? Is this, how do I lead without, people feeling, he's got it all figured out, or he's adding pressure, or it's that simple for him. Like, yes, sometimes it is, but I understand it's not as simple. I understand each person has a different way of going at it, and you need to like have grace on yourself in your own process.
Yeah, we're going to circle back to this leadership part, but I first want to get to, that starting journey. You mentioned there that you were, doing your articles while JobJack started. And I also heard that on another interview that you did, you literally started, you were JobJack, as in you were the platform that you were connecting people. Could you walk us through like how that actually started? Your kind of MVP, if you call it that.
Yeah. So I almost want to say it was like pre-MVP. I was like non-minimal viable product, or minimal non-viable product. So in essence, right, it really started with this this inkling I had that, shucks, people, I got a job really easily, but people don't. Other people don't. And why? Why is that? And obviously saw, a lot of my friends, me as a student as well before that, like trying to find these gig jobs. And then ultimately one day, as you might have heard, like my mother-in-law asked me if there's this opportunity that I can connect a few people to. And I was like, yeah, sure. Of course. I love connecting people to opportunities. And they did the work, and the payment came through me. And afterwards, I was like, yes, right, because they started asking me if I have more jobs, and I also thought like, shucks, okay, is there something in this? And
were you studying at this time, or
no,
doing
this
articles?
is articles.
Okay,
Yeah,
got
this
you.
is second year articles, and I dove into like, took out my phone. Everyone's on WhatsApp, and started WhatsApping a bunch of my mates saying, guys, are you looking for more work like this? Obviously, few people had asked me then, but I was like, let me not assume. Let me go ask widely, and everyone's at a point. Even me and my colleagues as articles, because like not paid the big bucks then, we're looking for those types of roles. And so like, okay, if everyone on that side is looking, how is it working on the other side? And so obviously I had my mother-in-law as reference. Like, how do you usually find people? No, just word of mouth. Phoned up a few other restaurants, wine farms, events companies. Just literally picked up the phone and called them. Like, how do you find your people? Walk-ins, or like if they know of someone, they'll just send them a quick WhatsApp. And I'm like, okay. So there's it works, but it doesn't really work. Like, it's not effective. And so me being the MVP then, I just literally had a WhatsApp group with a bunch of job seekers. And as I contacted customers or clients or employers, just said, okay, guys, here's a job. Who wants to take this? And send through they then send me like a little profile of themselves or a CV, popped it through to the people if that was needed. And cool, went through them. Payment came through me like once or just a few times. And then at that point I was like, okay, there's like this thing has traction. And I roped in my much smarter than me co-founder, Hein Bellingen, and dove into, okay, what does an actual MVP look like from a build perspective, right? So that we can actually just take something to market or have something exist so that we can prove more traction and ultimately grow from there.
Was he kind of the more technical?
Yes, he's also a CA, and so not one of us are really technical founders, but yes, I think in another world, he could also be an amazing, industrial engineer / tech founders. Like, he's a really brilliant guy. And yes, his brain just works so much more systematically than mine does. And so, like sometimes people ask, like, would you be where you are, like, without your co-founder? And my knee jerk is definitely not. Maybe, like, you don't know how things play out, right? But I'm forever grateful that we like entered into this thing as equal partners to say, okay, I really like drawing people in and connecting people. So that's what I'm going to do, whether it be from a customer side or an investor side or a team side, or wherever it's needed. I'm luckily feel like I've got enough of a brain to, like, if a problem is there, I can try and help solve it, or at least brainstorm with it. And Hein, he's amazing with people as well. So, motivates not just by saying, but by doing as well. But ultimately can draw out a picture, like a strategic picture. So, like, guys, we at point A, we need to get to point B. Let's go. And so that's been an amazing journey that we've had together as well.
When you first approached him, right? What were the qualities that you saw in him that you were like, we a good match. We're going to be co-founders.
That's cool. We did a few audits together, and I just saw this guy had the ability to just put his head down and do. And I think that was part of my dad's whole, like, people come out of varsity and they're not willing to get their hands dirty. I saw this guy was willing to work if needed, but not in a dumb way, right? Like, not in a naive way, in a way that like, if it's necessary, I'll do it, but like, let's see what the smartest way is in doing this, and not just accepting a rule for a rule or a system for a system. Like, constantly thinking, but why are they doing that? Why are we booking, time X on our timesheets, or like whatever the case, and not in a rebellious way, just like in a thinking, like, is there a smarter way in doing this? And ultimately, maybe sharing my naivete in believing you can build something that can change the world. I think that's probably the most important element, because you need to have this shared craziness to, like, dive into something as crazy as, starting a business that needs to scale. So that was I think the most important shared qualities. I'm very grateful that, very soon down the line, like, we got to a point where we share the same value set as well, and world outlook. And I think that's been invaluable in the ups and downs, because you really there's this, not to push the faith too much, but there's this really amazing verse in Ephesians which speak to, for two are better than one, because if one falls, the other's there to pick them up. And I think that's just so prevalent in a co-founder relationship, because you're like, wow, this is really like, there's inevitably tough times, but if someone's there to share the bigger vision and motivate you with why you're doing it, right? Why are we called to do it? Then it just doesn't just speak to your skill set as a founder, but it speaks to who you're called to be and who you are. And if someone understands that, it's amazing.
Yeah, what I'm taking from that is this humility in that, because you're not coming from this place of I'm number one and you number two. You're like, okay, cool, this is my strengths and this is my weaknesses, and we complement each other based on that.
100%. And I think that's what's been really amazing in this journey. And we've got a very diverse team, right? It's amazing from a cultural, religious, value, even motivation set, very, very different and very diverse. And it's always refreshing when people tell us wow, they can see we doing this for something bigger than just us. So that hopefully pride doesn't get in the way, and we hope it doesn't. I'm sure at times it does, but yes, 100% to your point. I think we both into this knowing it's not up to one of us. We super blessed to be in the driver's seat at the moment, but we're just helping each other on to fulfill something that's bigger than us.
I think that it also takes secure people to build something that's meaningful, and that's something that's going to be very sustainable. I think that insecure people, you'll get to the top very quickly, but your churn rate of people next to you will be depleted. Sure. It'll be super quick. And that's what I've noticed. A friend of mine works with this, she works in an organization, and the CEO, very insecure, to the point in which people are not, they're not encouraged to climb up the ladder. So I feel like it takes very secure people to know that I'm not competing with the person to my left or to my right. We're growing together.
100%.
And it seems like that's what you guys build and currently building.
It's really what we're trying to build there, right? And I'll be at no kind of naivety that we don't struggle with those insecurities as well, right? There's each person has their own struggles, and mine, for example, I'm a big people pleaser, right? And so that's something I constantly work on, is I want everyone to really enjoy what they're doing, enjoy every moment, like me while doing and to like me while they're doing it as well. And there's not wisdom in trying to push that the whole time, because people go through their own things, and if I'm gonna push for that the whole time, then people are gonna feel like I'm disregarding the struggle that they're going through, because no, it should be fun, no, it's no, kind of. But there's a reality to what someone's going through, right? And if I don't have that empathy in realizing okay, we're growing together, we each have a different perspective, each have a different way of thinking, then I'm gonna domineer them with what I think is a really good intention. At the end of the day, it's gonna do more damage than good. And so that's just a personal, practical example. And for the rest, we're figuring it out as we go, because as this business grows and as you get more people, right, you start realizing, whoa, people are amazing, but people are complex as well. And you need to be able to multiply them in a way that they are really multiplied, not just another number.
While we're speaking about people, I know that we skipped a lot of the story here of how you got to where you are, but I feel like this is such an important point, which is recruitment and who you let into the business and who you essentially building with. How's your recruitment process kind of adapted and evolved over time? And, what have you learned from that you could share with us?
Sure, yeah. So we, for context, we're about just over 50 people at the moment. And in the beginning, it used to be interview someone, yes, sure, I think this can work. And there are times when that works, or that could be right, but it's by no means a fail-safe. Recruitment is not fail-safe. Recruitment, hiring the right person, you've got about a 70, almost the highest, a 70 to 80% chance of actually finding the right person. And even then, people go through their own stuff, right? People go through change. business goes through change, individuals also go through change. So even if you hire the right person, you might get to a point where like, ooh, not the right person anymore, or ooh, something, externally has happened. But to get to kind of like how we evolved in that is we saw like, okay, there's a lot of traits that we see we like. So how do we duplicate that and make it non-reliant on us as founders, so that we don't have to sit in every interview? And there's not an issue in sitting in every interview, but you want to, again, if you want to scale and you want to multiply people, then you want to enable another hiring manager to be able to do that in their way as well. So what are the common threads that, cool, that's what we're going to do. And how do you duplicate? How do you allow that without my or your bias coming in the way when you're interviewing someone? Because there's always going to be bias. I mean, I think there's like a few hundred types of biases, and like they exist at any given point. And so, what we did is we just took a spoon of our own medicine, right? If part of our value prop is to say, okay, cool, if we're helping you as an organization automate your entry-level recruitment process by, one, not just removing the admin and the speed in finding someone, but ultimately utilizing a system that filters out and indicates a more relevant job fit. How do we do that? Well, we dove into like, what are the indicators of that, and ultimately came down to like a big component of it. Yes, is filtering questions. Yes, is being able to filter out, certain work experience, et cetera, but it's also looking at someone's traits, at someone's job fit. So looking at a battery of psychometric assessments, which tick not all of the boxes, but a lot of them, right? Like, and eliminates a lot of those biases. And so that's something that we actually then took to our own recruitment as well, to say like, okay, how do we remove all the major biases and get to a panel of people, or a short list of people where we are confident they've probably ticked all the necessary traits, and now that last bit, that 10-20% that's left, is going to be with regards to how do they conduct themselves in an interview, not just for me, but for a panel. And so that's something we've done as well, is we've not just had me interview you and I'm going to make the final decision as CEO. No, like there are a few people that have shown some incredible discernment in a red flag that they saw previously that we ignored. And or obviously if it's with regards to a certain skill set, then the hiring manager needs to be privy to what's going on, or like they need to be able to judge if the person has a certain skill or not. But to rely on the leadership team and the people that you are, as we just discussed, growing with you to cover your blind spots, because we can maybe be having an amazing conversation and be like, oh, this is just great, like this guy, like he's gonna be the best, but someone else can see, shucks, but I can actually sense, because they're sitting with a different strength than I can sense he's struggling, he's grappling with the long-term view of XYZ. And that's maybe not a no, that's just something then that we can actually dive into. But if they weren't sitting here with me, I wouldn't have recognized that, and maybe we would have been set up for failure as opposed to set up for success, just because we didn't quickly scratch it open or dive into that, or obviously mitigate it, not hiring the right person. And usually it's a dual-way street. Like, we need to ask enough questions to make sure that you, as candidate, actually want to join what we do, because the way we do things is different than the way you've maybe done them. So, or it's different than the way that you stimulated. I think incorrect belief that I had at a time was like, everyone should work at JobJack. Like, everyone's gonna love doing what we do and how we do it. That's not right. Like, it's wrong, right? Like, one, not everyone's gonna be motivated by what we do, even though what we do is incredible, like, and you can't deny the value of it, but how we do things as well. Like, yes, it's amazing, and I love it, and I believe our team loves it, but it's not for everyone, and it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point about also understanding. I mean, you mentioned so many things there, but the psychometric testing. I feel like to understand a person's EQ and how they process things, how they go through life, how they make decisions, how they interact with others, what type of personality are they? Like, it's so complex, but like, yeah, simplifying that. I heard something else, which is also, ask them questions according to that specific role to kind of like suss out if someone's just a talker or they can actually get the job done. Oh, I feel like that's a bit tough.
It's super tough, right? And you've got these array of questions that can like pinpoint as to something. So, okay, what did you think about this? like this task that was given. Let's say, because we do a lot of like, let's call it case studies that some of the candidates have to do. And obviously if they go through maybe a ChatGPT or like, it's easy to say, oh no, they thought it was pretty easy. Okay, what is the part that you struggled with the most, and explain to me why you struggle with it, right? One, that obviously gets them into a point where like, ooh, they're thinking. Another question that we like, especially with regards to managers, is what scenario like existed where you really messed up in leading someone, and why? Because that doesn't just like speak to them saying, no, they're a good leader, no, they've struggled with, top management or whatever the case, because most people do. But that dives into their vulnerabilities and them knowing themselves and them being secure enough in their own EQ or like, and faults, to be confidently saying, yeah, shucks, I actually messed up majorly this time. And like, this is the effect that it had, and this is how I handled it. This is what I learned from it. Right. So if you can dive into that, then you're like, okay, cool. This person really knows themselves, and they're not shy. They're not guarded with regards to their mistakes, which is massive. And then there's another question. We don't use it a lot, but I know Brian Chesky at Airbnb used it often, to say, if you had 5 years left, would you still work at Airbnb? Right? Just to showcase the passion, like that they really want to do. I think they subsequently changed to say, if you have 10 years left, would you still work here? But just to like really get into like, is this something that you really want to do? Because if it's just going to be another paycheck, then maybe it's not the place for you. And so there's an array, and I can go into my archives into like, this is a question I love, but it does also depend on type of role, seniority level, and obviously skill level as well.
100%. And once more on that weakness part, I feel like a secure person and someone that's very self-aware will know exactly the mistakes that they made and how they can improve, or what their weaknesses are, even if it's not at the top of their head. But if you are, this is just my opinion, if you're a self-aware person, you'll know where you lack and where you can improve at. And, that's what you'll be sharing. If you're secure enough in yourself to be like, yeah, I'm not the best at this, but I know that I can improve.
Yeah, 100%. Because that's a person you can work with, right? That you can grow with, as opposed to headbutting against someone that doesn't think that they need a change and grow in some way. And I believe each person eventually gets to that realization, but unfortunately, as a growing startup, you don't always have the luxury of like working through that the whole time. So it does come to a point where okay, you need to hire people that are a bit more self-aware, because you're not at the stage in business where you can like really, cultivate them through that journey themselves as well.
And growing and scaling the team, what challenges are there?
A lot. Shucks, man. So I think like it was a weird transition from about like somewhere between 29 or 28 people and 40-something people, where we like kind of just suddenly realized, I want to say suddenly realized, but it probably wasn't that, just at a point realized like, shucks, information used to be very organically communicated. Everyone used to be much more in the loop. As like we didn't think about how do we communicate what's going on. It just happened. And then to a point where we're like, oh shucks, people are really feeling left out. People are really feeling like they don't know what's going on. People are really feeling like they have no input anymore. And it's not something we did intentionally at all, right? Like it's something that you just, shucks, okay, shucks, the office is bigger, so they're not hearing conversations that are just organically happening. We aren't telling everyone everything, not because we're hiding it, just because like everyone's not in the same room anymore, or like everyone's got enough work to do. Like just carry on with you, and we'll figure this one out, this problem out so long. And so, but again, because, and we chatted about this earlier, right? Because what we do has a lot of passion, there's a lot of opinion as well, which is not an unhealthy thing. It just needs to be managed in a healthy way, because you can easily sway to the side where you're trying to accommodate everyone and everyone's opinion and everyone's input. And, the heart in me wants to have everyone feel like, wow, they really heard at every single moment. But the reality of a business, and even for a leader, regardless of business or not, like you need to be stewarding what you leading in a healthy and effective way, and in a way that showcases to people like you can't be involved everywhere, right? Like you need to own what is yours and run with it, and trust that whoever's taking that on, they're making the right call, and that they'll deal with it. And even if we make a mistake, it's okay. We can deal with it then. Like not to not to take this onus on yourself as to like, ooh, but if I don't say what I want to say, like we might make a mistake, right? Because, and that's it's a very noble thing to think, but it's something that's probably gonna not just frustrate you and the people around you in business, but maybe in life as well, right? And it's gonna eat you up from within inside if you're gonna try and take responsibility for decisions that are not in your control.
Yeah, once more, such a good point. I feel like a lot of people are, specifically what I heard about in organizations is that the line is not clear as to where their ownership lies. And therefore, one, perhaps they're picking up other people's slack, which of course is not healthy. But then two, yes, they are assuming responsibility when it's, kind of not theirs.
100%. And I think that's where we have grown and are still growing a lot as well, right? Is in the beginning and from a startup perspective, we still, I don't know, in startup / scale up phase, I don't really know anymore, but assume that everyone knows what their responsibility or, kind of role is. You assume everyone's like, whatever needs to be done. And our expectation is that people dive in where there needs to be, kind of dove into. But you also need to set clear responsibilities and clear expectations and clear accountability for the day-to-day, right? Because otherwise you're assuming someone knows something and you're assuming they have an idea, but after a week, after two, or after a quarter, you're sitting there and you're like, you didn't meet up to my expectations. And then they can maybe easily say, well, you didn't really clearly communicate your expectations. And I think that's really important when you're starting to lead people at a multi-level, kind of like way, because the assumption is everyone's thinking like you or your leadership team. But that's not the case, and it shouldn't be. Everyone comes with different strengths and different roles and different ways. Even everyone in the leadership team doesn't think the same. So to like really outline clear expectations, and vice versa, right? Like leadership to outline clear expectations that they have of me as a leader, or as Hein as a leader. So important, because if there's these unsaid expectations, then you're sitting with inevitable disappointment down the road. So, yeah, it's not easy. Like we are still figuring this out as we grow, but hopefully we a bit more aware of it now than we were a year ago.
And just circling back a bit, so the core problem that you're solving. So we touched on this earlier on, where you're kind of developing this MVP at this early stage. At what point did you go full time into the business? And then, could you walk us through that problem that you noticed early on that then became a full-time business?
Sure, yeah. So I mean, ultimately, right, I saw like so much need from both parties. Employers want good people at, like a click of a finger, and these employees or job seekers are wanting opportunities that are relevant for them and that don't necessarily require a 5-year degree and doctorate and blood transfusion and like just everything that job specs nowadays require. And so okay, well, shucks, this is something we need to do. And so we got external developers to just build us an MVP over a few months process, and then just started seeing all the more companies come on. Our first focus was still on gig type jobs, so event companies and so forth, and saw traction from event companies even phoning us, say, cool, do you guys have people, and quickly arrange people. It was a much more manual process back then. Just to give you an idea or a little story, we when we were piloting for a pretty big client that we still have now, I'm not going to mention names, the sell was, cool, you're going to get automated candidate profiles that they set up on the platform and so forth. And we knew we were building it, so it wasn't a lie. It was just we weren't there just yet. And so we had interns working, WhatsApping candidates, getting the information, creating profiles on Canva, and then us WhatsApping those profiles through to the to the employer, saying, no, the system has just WhatsApped you through. I mean, it was a system. It was just a system of interns.
Brilliant.
And so I think like through that, and maybe to speak more practically, so around 2018, I was finishing up my third year of articles. Hein had already completed, so he dove in full time. And we'd already hired, I think 2 or 3 people by the end of that year. And then I finished up with my articles. It was just something that we both agreed it was manageable enough for me to do that. And I was working before work, lunchtime, and after work. We had strict hours, so like I knew that was that. And obviously worked really hard within my article hours to get done what needs to get done. And I think that taught me a lot about time management as well. So you might or might not know, you have to book every 15 minutes of what you're doing in articles. And so it really helps with time management. But I could do a lot post hours. And by the end of that year, I'd completed my articles. So at least kind of, could say that's something that's done. And we knew in the twisted way society works that like having, a chartered accountant CA qualification, like it helps, it adds some validity to if you're going to an investor. So it was worth it for me to just complete that as well. And then 2019, jumped in like head in. We had I think 3 or 4 employees then, and figured it out for about the year of 2019. Did our first little, I want to say, institutional fundraising in September that year, and really saw it like, okay, cool, we getting this sense that the need is not just there for gig work, because we had a lot of requests, obviously, from job seekers for more permanent opportunities, right? Like we got a lot of job seekers that started signing up, but we thought like surely these big employers had figured it out. Like if you're hiring hundreds of people on a monthly or even in a yearly basis, like you had to have figured out like how to find people in an effective way. And it was just by God's grace that we got this meeting with a big employer, one of South Africa's largest retailers, and just met with him with inquiry. I think that's part of the beauty in like the naivety is you go in like literally just wanting to know. And they said, no, they're sitting with boxes of paper CVs. And in a better case, but actually worst case, an email inbox full of PDF CVs. And they just hire the first, kind of 9th best CV that's popping up, but it's the wrong person. Job seekers are spending a lot of money getting there, so they're only exposed to the job seekers and actually afford to get to them. And lo and behold, they're sitting probably with hundreds or even thousands of unfilled vacancies because it's too much of a schlep in actually hiring the person, because they're probably going to hire the wrong person, which they train and input into the business, and they end up leaving in 3 or 6 months anyway. And so we're like, whoa, okay, there's a massive need here. And obviously dove into like calling a bunch more, bigger employers, and so like, no, that's the status quo, not just in South Africa, all around the world. And I said, cool, well, we're gonna pivot our focus to focus more on enterprise, and move away from gig. And by the end of 2019, we thought like, sweet, we've pivoted the platform forward. We think we figured out the revenue or pricing model for it, which should kind of ultimately always be free for the job seekers, but kind of really getting it, because they're already spending a lot of money that they don't have to begin with. And beginning of 2020, we're like, this is going to be a great year. COVID hit. A recruitment startup in COVID.
You and many people.
Yeah, no, it was a very humbling experience. And again, by grace, made it through. I think we had six employees back then, and we didn't have to let go of any one of them. We obviously had some major salary cuts and so forth, but and for a full 10 months made 5,250 Rand revenue a month.
Goodness.
Yeah, well.
And before this, how were you guys funding it? So from 2018, you doing your articles until hiring and going full time. How are you guys surviving?
Yeah, by grace. So we did. So we didn't do this purposefully, right? Like I think it was really just a blessing that we kind of followed the suit. So with the first MVP that ran through me, we actually made quite a bit of revenue. Not a lot, no means a lot, but like to prove traction, to get a first angel or full family and friends that got us through the next 3 months. And at that time, obviously, I didn't have to take a salary at all. Hein also in the beginning didn't have to. And then, we got a bit more traction. So, okay, we could raise a tiny bit more to get us through the next 2 or 3 months. Also, super blessed that Hein had some savings, with regards to some other things that he dove into. We're both entrepreneurs by trade, I think. So we dabbled a little bit, and we knew what it took. I think, especially post articles, to not live on a lot. But I think we were. It was a coincidence almost that we followed the suit of like, okay, traction, raise a bit more. Traction, raise a bit more. We didn't dive in. Oh, we have traction. Let's go raise R1 million. No, we have traction. Let's go raise 100,000. Oh, we have some more traction. Let's go raise 250. We have some more traction. Let's go 300. We have some more traction. Let's go 500. And so eventually we built up so that we didn't have to give a lot away at all, because every time we raised, obviously you could argue a higher valuation, and ultimately you're building a lot of support in that as well, and you building in a way where you're forced to really prove traction with each raise, because you don't have a lot to work with. So you could almost see it as bootstrapped fundraising. I don't know,
yeah.
But not.
And were these people in your network?
Some of them. We actually, the first few were. The first one was. Second and third, or maybe fourth one was on this network called investmentnetwork.co.za or .com. It's South African one, that you put your pitch on, and investors see it, and then they can contact you, and you can be like. And so one of the first angels literally flew down. We had a coffee with him, and he was like, flew back. He's like, cool, here's 250. And just like, and I think again that comes down to like the interview stage, right? He could see the traction, like from a distance. He could see the CV. Took a chance, flew down. I think he might have been in the area anyway. So okay, like are these guys for real? Showcase. Maybe we showcased the platform. I can't even remember if we did. I know for one or two of the angels we didn't have to, because there was just so much conviction in what we're doing, and I think that was a big part. And that's been the feedback, especially from those angels in those days. Is there's so much conviction in what we're doing that it's almost not an option for us to fail, and so like we're gonna make it work. Period. Now that's not a bulletproof investment strategy by no means, and I can respectfully say I think all of them did their due diligence, and none of them were that naive, but I think it helped a lot.
100%. I mean, I call it delusional self-belief.
100% what it is, right?
Like every founder or entrepreneur, if you don't have delusional self-belief, then I'm sorry, you're in the wrong.
I think you're 100% right. To my point earlier, like you need, and I think that's where it helped. Like you need someone as crazy as you to believe you can actually. What Steve Jobs, only those that are crazy enough to believe they can change the world that actually do. But you need to first have that belief, and maybe science tells us, or stats tells us, most of the case it fails. But for the 10% that it doesn't, you actually need to believe that you can. Yeah,
100%. That's such a cool story that people literally took bets on you guys, because that's what it was.
Yeah, 100%.
There's no guarantee. Yes, you had some traction, so kind of you got the meeting, but they took bets on you.
Yeah,
I think that well done.
Thanks. No, I think there's and what Han and I quickly learned, like there's a saying in Silicon Valley that like we learned as well, like if you want money, go ask for advice. If you want advice, go ask for money. Meaning like what we saw is if you go in with this cocky attitude of like, listen, what we do works, just give us your money. All you're going to get then is advice to say like, I think you need to go rethink the way you think about things and life and your business, because then probably it's not in a place where you're actually willing to grow and learn as you go, as opposed to you go in to say like, oh, this would be really cool, but just like, what do you think about this? Like, do you think this could act like, this is what we've done, like, just give us your advice. And more than not, we saw it, I saw people like, yeah, this is incredible. Like, and the way you guys are asking, the way you guys are thinking about it means you're probably going to learn a lot and you're probably going to apply a lot. So yes, take my money as well and run with it.
I mean, it's such a different mentality, because you're going in with the intention to, or regardless of how it's going to turn out, you're okay if they say no, right? I think that's the first thing that I'm hearing. You're not desperate. That's like the second thing. So how do you cultivate that mentality of not being desperate, but still coming from a place of, flip, I need that money?
Yeah, a great question, right? Because both exist. you go in with a lot of confidence, and that's key, right? You need to go in believing what you are doing is incredible and that you're going to make it incredible. Like it's a no-brainer. I think one of the biggest pieces of advice, again, Airbnb got when they went to Y Combinator was, what is that the revenue you saying to investors you're going to make? No, add another zero to the end. Like, that's crazy. Like, well, you need to believe that because they need to believe that you can do that. And so you need to go in with that conviction because that showcases that you really like, that you are really okay and that you believe this will work regardless of if they come or not. One, it creates that like sense of, I don't really need you, like you need me. And you need to believe that, right? Like, that's not like because you're going to go in desperately wanting the money because you feel you just need this money to flip and, get to the next stage. But you need to go in saying like, this is going to work regardless of if I take your money. Like, it doesn't need to be you. That's the confidence side. Second side is like, you sitting with someone that has clearly achieved, one or two things in life because they sitting on the driver's seat at that moment. And so to go in with a humility to say, guys, this is what we've done. You've obviously seen a lot in life. Like, do you see any blind spots? Do you see any, do you agree with that this can be massive? Not in a doubting yourself way, just in like, how do you see this? Like, is this something you'd want to be part of? And like, if so, tell me how you think this is going to be amazing. Because again, then you're going out taking at least something, even if they said no. And I think that's maybe it's hedging your bets as well, right? Going in with like, we're going to get money, and at the very least, we'll get some great advice because this is a really cool person that you're meeting with. But I think you probably need both, and easier said than done. I think we were just blessed enough to go in smaller increments in the beginning, so that it didn't feel like this massive, shot of like, if they don't say yes, then it's not going to be a thing.
Mm-hmm. And on the sales side of things, how are you guys able to grow? I mean, we spoke about this off camera, but it's so challenging. I mean, I experienced this with, for example, podcast advertising. It's so tough to get to the people that I want to sell ads to because, one, I've been sending out cold emails, and then what do you do afterwards? A LinkedIn approach. And then what do you do afterwards? Oh, maybe you can ask someone that knows them. But it's very much coming from like this, I don't know, a scarce point of view. But also maybe it's like you're hustling because you don't see another option. How have you been approaching it to kind of like, get into the room and then of course sell?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think like what I just mentioned, like the principles can be duplicated as well. Like, again, we've seen like the most open prospects be like inviting you. If you would say like, listen, we're doing this really cool thing, would you mind giving us some advice on this? And we did that a lot in the beginning. It was really inquiries, like, how, we just want to know, how are you actually finding people? Because like, we basically want to see if we can build, or like if it's a viable solution to. And that already created a lot of relationship, so that when we actually built it, we're like, okay, well, now we've built it. Like what you said, we actually built that. So like, are you wanting to try it? And I still, even to this day, right? Like our biggest approach in the let's say we have an hour and a half meeting, an hour would go into, let's just chat about your process. I just really want to understand what your process and what your needs are, because if it's not something you need, then it's not something I'm going to sell. Obviously, to get them to like actually meet with you is a different story. I think one, going with an earnesty to say like, hey, I really just want your advice. Would you mind gifting me 30 minutes of your time just for advice? Already helps, or it helped a lot and still does. Two, obviously, as you get traction, the element of FOMO always kicks in. So like a large point, or at a point we could see a lot of FOMO being created. Like each new customer we sign up, which back then was more retail customers, we could take a selfie in front of it and in front of the store and say like, oh, McDonald's just joined us. And then you're going to see like another fast food retailer be like, oh, okay, well, and then by the time we contact them, like, okay, no, we've seen you guys do this. Yes, let's chat. Let's at least see what our competitors are doing. And so that helps a lot. And then ultimately, obviously, as your network, grows and your viability in the market grows, people are just a bit more open to meeting you. But at the end of the day, it's a volumes game, and you just need to continue being persistent in a respectful manner. But like, if you follow your conviction and you like, I still do a lot of our sales, like, and if I really believe that my product is going to make this person's life better, I'm not going to leave them after they've said no, maybe later, or I don't know. I'm going to like dive into, okay, who do I need to chat to, like, to really, convince you that this is going to be this. Oh, probably this person. Okay, thanks. I'll chat with them. So like, to take all angles, and I mean, you mentioned it as well. It just is what it is, unfortunately, right? Like, there's no escaping the hard work that goes into what it takes. As someone asked me the other day, okay, cool, if you have your product, what's your campaign then? If your product is done, everything's set up, like, what's your campaign to reach the masses? I'm like, what do you mean? No, like, you've done, like, what's your whole, like, how do you set up your marketing campaign to, like, go, like, in all honesty, like, when you're done, the best marketing campaign is to pick up the phone and call the first 100 people that you can, and then do that again and again and again and again and again, because then you're going to start seeing, oh, shucks, this is like what people want, this is what people don't want, and this is just how best you're going to reach someone. Now, obviously, that's not the only option you can do, but that's the hard, like, the simplicity but hard work that it takes.
Yeah, I guess the premise of that is persistence and not to give up after perhaps like the first 5 no's.
No.
Or, I mean, worst case is, I mean, for me, what I've noticed is that the lack of responses. So that is
the worst.
It's the worst.
Just give me a no. At least give me a no.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I would prefer if you say no. Like, then I know that, cool, you're getting my email and you're seeing it, so you're aware of what we do and what I'm like asking for. Because also, I've tried many different tailored messages. The first would be, of course, 30 minutes of your time. Okay, people are busy. They're not going to give you that. So then it's okay, cool. Like, what's your pain points that I could perhaps speak to and ask about that? Maybe I can open up a door there. Because just coming from the place, like you said, of, oh, this is what we do, I'm probably not going to read that.
No.
But if you're very personal towards me, I've noticed that. But then, like you said, it's a volumes game. Can I message 100, 200 people on a weekly basis? Surely 1% of those people.
Exactly. And it usually is. It usually is 1%. It's usually out of 100 that you're going to contact, you'll probably land 1, which is horrible, but it's the reality. Like, it's stats based, right? Like, you can take your emotions out of it. Like, that is literally what the data shows you. And you can always try and push for more. We obviously do from our side, but like, you don't have to like sit and be like, oh shucks, I don't have a good enough product, or like, I'm not good at sales. Or like, the data shows you, if you're going to reach out to 100 people and make those 100 messages pretty personalized, you're still only going to get 1.
100%.
Right? So
yeah, and someone also told me about the big fish. Just catch one of them, and you'll see the others follow. Like, which is what you mentioned. You take a picture, and then there's FOMO. That's such a good point. In this season of your life, what drives you?
I think what drives me at the moment is not one specific thing per se, not the amount of revenue that we do, or even the amount of jobs that we help place, right? Like, all that the system facilitates. It's also not like one, let's call it, event, at this, I don't know, stupid stage in life where you commit to like Ironmans and stuff. But it's a holistic, like, am I really following what I've been called to do? Not in a doubting what you're doing, but like, are you doing it fully? Are you really doing it fully, like, in every aspect of your life, from family, which is first, to the business, to looking after yourself? Obviously, those can come in particular orders for particular individuals. And for me, obviously, it's faith, family, like self, and then only the business. And am I really one, flowing in my strengths? Am I multiplying the people around me? And I think, like, as I'm verbally processing this with you, like, I think it comes down to that. Like, am I, through multiplying myself and my strengths, multiplying the people around me? Because if I'm not, then it's a pretty lonely road. And I think at the moment, like, that's my biggest motivator, is like, wow, how am I, through, kind of who I am and constantly discovering, and learning who I am and what multiplies and motivates me, motivating and multiplying my wife, my son, my friends, my family, my co-founder, my leadership team, each person that's part of JobJack, a customer, a conversation like this. Like, am I really walking in fullness of who I'm called to be?
Amazing. Growing others in the process.
Yeah.
Or aiding the growth of others in the process. Not the growth of yourself.
Yeah. Just am I serving? Like, right, freely I've received, so freely I can give, in a way that, like, just has people like, whoa, life is amazing. Life is tough, but life is amazing. And if I can, I heard someone say a while ago, and I stole it, and I can't remember who it was, but if I can be the best part of someone's day, that'll be a cool day. Then that's a great day, right? Because being the best part of someone's day means, one, like, I need to be looking after myself, because, like, let's not serve from an empty cup. Let's serve from a cup that's overflowing. So, boom, that's great. That's happening. But then if I can have that for someone else, then, like, cool. Then I'm really overflowing, because, that's, people can be sharing in the joy that I have.
100%. Is there something that we did not speak about today?
Probably a lot that we didn't speak about.
That you'd like to share before we go into the last part?
I think something I'll mention. I'm really diving into, like, to one of our questions pertaining to multiplying people. I'm really diving into what, how do you lead effectively? And obviously, the most prevalent, right, is business. That's, to a degree, why I'm sitting here as well, is what we're building. And what does that look like for each individual person? Because I think, like, sometimes you're trying to find this equation of, leadership. But the more I dive into it, the more I realize, like, each person is motivated and multiplied in a different way. And I think if us as individuals can really, like, zone down on the people around you and what motivates them, then I think you're starting to really add value beyond just, like, I don't know, what your physical work is. And I think, like, what we do at JobJack, like, is trying to, yes, transform the way the world experiences entry-level employment. But that starts with us transforming the way the people, at JobJack experience what it is to do something, on a vocational basis, and how they are led. And so something I'm grappling with a lot at the moment. Sharing freely here, because we're chatting about this, but it's something that I've realized is so important in people's journeys, is to be motivated, to feel like they are challenged and motivated in what they're doing, not just being dragged along in a fun journey. Like, they really want to be useful. They want to be equipped. They want to be, kind of pushed in a way that, like, makes them feel like, whoa, I'm stretching myself. And so I think if we can not just think about that for ourselves, like, as individuals, like, what's really going to push me, what's going to get me out of my comfort zone, and multiply, the gifts that I have, but how can I do that for the people around me as well, within business or without? Then I think we're leaving the world a little better than we found it. Yeah.
What does it look like practically when it comes to your team? Is it just having conversations, perhaps of, growth plans? Or does it come down to what you've been doing, which is, setting the vision, setting this massive, ambitious vision, and then executing day by day?
I think different strokes for different folks, right? I think a big vision is super important, but a big vision without a plan is sometimes confusing for the majority of people. And there's a need in having both. especially if you're trying to do something that's never been done before. But I think such an important part is sitting with an individual to know what motivates them. For some, it might be a motivational conversation, right? Like an in-depth conversation as to who they are and like what value they are adding. For some, it might literally be this is the goal I expect from you after month 1, 2, 3, and 4, because they're like, this is feeding them. And for some, it might be, okay, let's discover what is it that motivates you and like what really excites you in your day to day. And I think that's where I'm getting at with regards to like really knowing what multiplies people around you. And part of the tools to that, right? Whether it be actual multiplier tools, there's a book called Multipliers, right? Or, whether it be some personality, tools like Clifton Strengths. We use Clifton Strengths at JobJack. It could be, Myers-Briggs, whatever the case may be. But to dive into like, do you really know what makes the people around you tick? Are you taking time to do that? And one, how much time can you take amidst growing a big business? Because again, different seasons, to be sitting with them and really investing in them. Because we've got the saying at JobJack that we profess a lot to people, to customers. A quote by Zig Ziglar, which says, "You don't build a business, you build the people, and the people build the business." And what does it take to build the people? Right, it takes intention.
Such a good point. Even earlier, you said that passion, purpose fuels profit. I think,
if you chase purpose, your profit will follow. Yeah.
That's something to add to that would be, if you focus on the people, like you said, profit will follow. And I think that's the way I like to think about things as well.
Yeah.
Even, growing this business to whatever it may be is firstly focusing on myself as a leader, focusing on, in the short term, yes, the fuel to get to where I want to be and then grow from there.
Yeah.
But already talking about these things, you planted some seeds for me as well.
I'm glad.
The last part of the podcast is called the fast fire. Someone asks you these quick questions. If you could answer in a word, a short sentence, that would be amazing. Contrarian truth. What's something that you believe to be true that perhaps not many agree with you on?
Oh, the Peter Thiel question.
Yes.
Love this. Everyone can experience joy. It's not as contrarian, but I believe it's possible.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure some people would disagree with you on that.
Maybe.
One rule. If you could make one rule that everyone has to follow, no questions asked, what would it be?
Love yourself.
That's good. I call this the 3 Ps. So you picture yourself speaking in front of 60 million people. So it could be in person, maybe some virtually. What's 3 pieces of wisdom that you would share with them? You're on the stage.
2 of the quotes by which I really try and live my life is, 1, you are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with the most. Doesn't have to be true, but it often tends to be. So surround yourself with some amazing people. 2, you can change the world if you don't mind who takes credit. I think if we can put away our pride and really serve to serve and not for self-gratification, and I'm the biggest culprit of that, then the world really be a different place. And 3, maybe to my previous answer, is if you can really learn to love yourself, I think it'll give you so much freedom to love other people as well.
That second one hit. Oof. If you're okay with not taking the credit, I feel like that will solve so many problems.
So much. We're in a world where people, myself included, crave accreditation. We crave people to just give us some affirmation, right? Mainly because we don't love ourselves, which is why I ended with that as well. But we live in a world where people are so desperately wanting just to feel that they are worth something. And if we can get to a point where, 1, we love ourselves enough that we can serve just to serve and not do it to get some credit, I think a lot of people will do some really cool stuff,
100%. I also think it's a bit of a catch-22, right? Because on the one side, we create this personal brand online, right? Let's use this as an example. So I'm posting on LinkedIn, I'm sharing on Instagram, I'm doing this podcast, right? And, with that, people resonate with people, and therefore, if my intention is to inspire and to educate, I want to ensure that everything I do is within those two kind of buckets. But it's me that has to be on that post that's posting. Does that make sense?
100%.
If I could achieve that with being anonymous, that would be...
Right, and I'm yes saying these things whilst I do exactly what you do, right? Like I'm online a lot because it's really helping our brand grow. But I constantly need to watch my heart with regards to like, is this giving me some validation of who I am? And I think if you can constantly be at the point where this is not something you need, then hopefully whatever you're putting out there comes through authentically and not suggesting something that people need to do something to be recognized. So you're right. I mean, the ultimate would be if it were
100%.
If it were maybe a disguised name like a Hannah Montana or whatever you want to go at. But I think that's part of like loving yourself is not having those insecurities, intermingle with what you're trying to do. Mm-hmm. Because I constantly find myself like, cool, Christiaan, if you're saying these things, why are you out there, kind of in the spotlight or in the, kind of, and then you need to be secure enough in like what you're doing that you're like, that's okay. Some people might think it as well. That's what the people pleaser in me needs to like die as well. And that's okay. Like if some people think like, oh, he's saying these things, but he's out in public quite a lot, then that's okay because I know why I'm doing it, and I'm secure enough in myself and in what I'm learning from myself and growing that it's okay. They can think what they need to think, but
100%.
We're doing this.
That's a good point as well.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of what people think about your intention, if you're secure in what your intention is, that should be the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
And hope that that intention, bears fruit.
100%.
Last one is one piece of advice to someone that is seeking employment, and this person is fresh out of high school.
I don't know if I could keep it to one point. Maybe the first point is the reality is that it is difficult, especially in South Africa, to find a job. If there's any sense of entitlement, try let that one go, because so many people are looking for a job, and yes, each person, like each hardworking and honest person, deserves a job. Like, don't want to shy away from that, but the state of our economy means that like, not everyone currently does find a job. So what you can do from your side is work hard, and by working hard, it means looking after creating a good online CV. So obviously, I'm going to punt someone to go do that on JobJack. The platform really helps you to do that. You can download that CV on there as well. Or obviously, if you want to create it in some other way, maybe on a Canva or so, go for it. There's some really cool templates for that. But again, like the platform and what we've built, especially for high school leavers, is really incredible. It really showcases a lot of that. And then you need to go apply to a lot of jobs in a humble way that really says like and speaks to. And what I mean by this is if you're answering any of those questions, if you're speaking with someone where you're dropping off a CV, to be humble in the sense of like I'm really willing to get my hands dirty and work hard for what needs to get done to build up my career. Because what we see a lot is people applying for a certain retail job, and the idea is to maybe sit behind a till or, obviously become the store manager, but to get there, they need to maybe mop the floor. And that sucks. Like, I don't want to shy away from like, if that's not something you want to do, then it's not nice to do, but it's something that might be necessary to do in the start. So be willing to just work hard and serve. I think for me, it comes back to like, be willing to serve. Because I know it might be super tough, and I know I'm speaking, from a very privileged position, but be willing to do the work. Part of the work, again, is to make sure that you are interview ready, that you're application ready. If that means lending some clothes somewhere, lend some clothes somewhere. If it means smiling, just smile. Show the person you're friendly. Show the person that you are willing to learn, willing to work. I've seen that go a very long way. If you just present yourself in a way that shows you've done some effort and shows that you are willing to work and willing to learn. Like, for me, that's like any employer that sees that is going to be attracted to you as a candidate.
Amazing. Thank you. This was so insightful. Thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing your story here with us. But the impact that you're making is just next level. So I hope that everyone, I hope that you find more of these enterprises, and I hope that they on board and you're able to, get them finding these candidates on the other side, because I feel like you're doing something that's so necessary, not just for the short term, but like it has the potential to significantly reduce our unemployment rate. So thank you for the impact that you're making. Thank you for giving me your time here today.
Awesome. Thanks so much for the conversation, man. Really appreciate your heart and just asking these questions. I think more people need to see the people behind the facade, right, or the business or what you see in public. So just, thanks for facilitating an amazing conversation, and excited for what this podcast will still become as well.
Thank you. Amazing.